People always like to talk about who's the greatest, who's the GOAT, and I don't like those discussions because different eras, different players, different rules. So I had that kind of confidence.
You're not Michael Jordan. You're not the GOAT. You did choke in an NBA Finals. 4 consecutive fourth quarters in an NBA Finals. This man was scoring 4 points. One game, he scored 0 points in an NBA Finals fourth quarter. With Jason Terry or J.J. Barea guarding you. There is no explanation for that to anybody who knows basketball.
5 words were all it took to set the basketball world buzzing. No long speech. No dramatic build-up. Just a blunt statement that spread across social media in minutes. Stop pretending you're the GOAT. When a voice like Larry Bird delivers a message that direct, people don't ignore it. They stop and listen. The legendary Boston icon is known for precision, both on the court and with his words. And this time, he didn't soften the message or wrap it in diplomacy. He spoke plainly, and the reaction was immediate. This wasn't framed as a generational complaint or a retired star criticizing the modern game. Instead, it felt like a calculated challenge, a step-by-step breakdown of legacy, achievement, and what truly defines basketball greatness. Bird wasn't tossing out opinions for attention. He was presenting an argument carefully and confidently. And that's what made the moment so powerful. His tone stayed calm, measured, almost analytical. No shouting. No theatrics, just reasoning delivered with the quiet certainty of someone who has lived through championship pressure and knows exactly what it demands. The target of the conversation at the center of the debate, of course, stands LeBron James, a player whose career has already reshaped how modern basketball is measured. Longevity, versatility, and global influence. His resume stretches across eras. For years, many fans have argued that his body of work places him at the very top of the sport's history. That Bird's comments didn't deny that greatness. Instead, they questioned something more specific, whether greatness automatically equals the greatest. That distinction is where the conversation intensified. He reportedly focused on legacy structure rather than highlight moments. Championships under pressure. Dominance when everything is on the line. The ability to define an era without debate. According to Bird's reasoning, the GOAT label demands not just excellence, but unquestioned supremacy at the highest stage. Why the reaction was so intense, the basketball community didn't react simply because of what was said. It reacted because of who said it and how clearly it was delivered. Bird represents an era defined by rivalry, physical play, and championship-driven identity. His words carry weight because they come from lived experience, not distant observation. Within hours, analysts, former players, and fans began revisiting old arguments with renewed urgency. Clips resurfaced. Statistics were re-examined. Long-settled opinions suddenly felt less certain. Even some of LeBron's strongest defenders found themselves debating details they once considered settled. That's the ripple effect of a statement that challenges a widely accepted narrative. It forces people to rethink assumptions, not emotionally, but structurally. What standards truly define the greatest career? Are modern expectations different from past ones? And if so, should the criteria change at all? It began quietly, almost unnoticed at first, the kind of moment that doesn't seem historic until the reaction arrives. But within days, what started as a simple interview turned into one of the most talked about basketball controversies of 2025. At Larry Bird, a player whose career was built on confidence, precision, and backing up every word with elite performance, finally addressed a subject many believed he had deliberately avoided for years. The conversation centered on modern legacy, specifically the growing belief that LeBron James stands alone at the top of basketball history. Bird made it clear he didn't see it that way. During an exclusive interview that surfaced in January 2025, he didn't gently question the idea. He challenged it directly. With calm certainty and unmistakable conviction, he delivered a statement that immediately froze the room. He explained that being part of the conversation is one thing, but declaring the debate finished is something entirely different. His message was simple but firm. Greatness must be measured, compared, and tested over time. And in his view, the numbers in history still leave room for argument. He leaned back as he spoke, carrying the same quiet confidence fans remember from his playing days, when he would predict a shot before taking it, and then make it. The atmosphere shifted instantly. No one interrupted. No one laughed. The weight of the moment settled in, because when Larry Bird evaluates basketball excellence, people pay attention. His perspective isn't shaped by trends or headlines. It's shaped by championships, rivalries, and first-hand experience at the highest level of the sport. This wasn't a quick opinion meant to stir reaction. It was a measured assessment delivered by a three-time league MVP and Hall of Fame icon, whose career defined an era. And that's exactly why the impact spread so fast. What might have sounded like a casual comment from someone else carried the force of authority coming from him. Within hours, fans began replaying the interview, analyzing every word, and revisiting long-standing assumptions about how greatness should be defined. The discussion didn't feel like entertainment anymore. It felt like a serious re-examination of basketball history itself. Supporters of Bird didn't waste time explaining what he meant. They showed it. They pulled up finals records. They posted last-minute game footage. They compared playoff pressure. Their argument was built around three pillars: clutch reputation that became mythology. Bird didn't just perform late. He announced what he was about to do. Teammates, opponents, and broadcasters all told the same stories. He called shots before making them. Brutal competitive environment. The 1980s wasn't just talented. It was physically punishing and rivalry-driven. Every postseason meant battling stacked dynasties, especially the Lakers-Celtics war that defined an era. Legacy built in fewer years. Maximum impact. Bird's prime was shorter due to injuries. But supporters argue his peak dominance was overwhelming when it mattered most to them. Bird wasn't questioning greatness. He was questioning how greatness is measured. The LeBron response: longevity, versatility, and modern dominance. But supporters of LeBron James came back just as hard and just as organized. Their argument wasn't emotional. It was mathematical. Unmatched longevity at elite level. Decades into his career, LeBron still performs like a franchise cornerstone, something virtually unheard of in league history. Total game dominance: scoring, passing, rebounding, defense, leadership. LeBron isn't just elite in one area. He's historically elite across all of them. Adaptability across eras and teams. Different coaches, different rosters, different systems, different conferences. Championships in multiple situations. His supporters, that's not just greatness. That's evolutionary greatness. Why this debate hit so hard? This wasn't just stats versus stats. It was philosophy versus philosophy. Peak dominance versus sustained dominance. Era toughness versus era evolution. Mythic clutch versus statistical supremacy. And when Bird openly challenged the idea that the GOAT debate is finished, it struck at something deeper than fandom. It questioned whether basketball history can ever have a final answer, because if a legend of Bird's stature still sees the crown as unsettled, then maybe the debate isn't ending anytime soon. This is the moment where Bird leaned all the way in. He focused on championships, the clearest currency in basketball history. On paper, the count looks simple. LeBron James has 4 titles. Bird finished with 3. At first glance, that seems decisive. But Bird argued that raw totals don't tell the full story. In his view, rings aren't just numbers, they're context. He challenged fans to look past the total and ask tougher questions. How are those titles earned? What obstacles stood in the way? And did the success grow naturally over time, or was it assembled with the goal of winning immediately? That distinction mattered to him. Bird captured all 3 of his championships with the same foundation: one city, one organization, and a consistent core that stayed together year after year. The identity didn't change. The pressure didn't reset. Every run came with expectations stacked higher than the last. LeBron's path looked different. His 4 championships came across 3 franchises: Miami, Cleveland, and Los Angeles. Each stop brought new rosters, new systems, and new combinations of elite talent. In several cases, those situations were designed from the start to contend right away. Bird wasn't dismissing those victories. Instead, he was separating achievement from construction. To him, There's a difference between building something slowly until it becomes dominant and relocating to environments already engineered to win. One reflects continuity. The other reflects strategy. That's why, in Bird's eyes, the ring debate isn't about 4 versus 3. It's about stability versus movement. About growing a dynasty versus chasing one already in motion. And once he framed it that way, the comparison felt a lot less straightforward than the numbers alone suggest. Bird Celtics weren't dominating in isolation. They were locked in a constant war with Magic Johnson and the Showtime dynasty. These finals weren't just series, they were cultural events. Every possession felt like a legacy swing to fast-paced offense versus physical half-court execution, Hollywood flair versus blue-collar grit. Neither side had an easy path, only survival. The physical gauntlet of the East, and if you made it out of the West Coast showdown, you still had to survive the East. Bird's road ran through the brutal defense of the Detroit Pistons, the infamous Bad Boys, built on intimidation and physical punishment. The star power and scoring brilliance of Julius Erving and the Philadelphia 76ers. These weren't rebuilding squads or temporary contenders. They were championship-caliber teams loaded with elite talent. Year after year, no shortcuts, no soft brackets, no breathing room. What Bird is really saying, his point isn't just who won more. It's who had to beat whom to win it all. From his perspective, multiple dynasties existed simultaneously. Playoff series were physical wars, not tactical chess matches. A lone star power was concentrated across many teams. The path to a title required beating legends. Repeatedly so. When he says that used to mean something, he's talking about surviving a league where every round felt like a finals. And that's why his argument resonates with many older players and historians. Not because they deny modern greatness, but because they believe era. Context changes what championships represent. According to Larry Bird, the GOAT conversation isn't just about talent, longevity, or total championships. It's about how those championships were earned and what happened in the biggest moments. His case against LeBron James comes down to 3 main pillars. Team movement versus legacy building, switching franchises to win titles. From Cleveland to Miami to Los Angeles, is seen by Bird as chasing opportunity, not constructing a long-term dynasty with one core. Finals performance under pressure. Bird emphasizes that the greatest players don't just reach the finals, they dominate them. Championship conversion rate to him. Winning when you get there matters more than simply getting there often. That's why he contrasts LeBron's 4-6 finals record with the spotless dominance of Michael Jordan, 6-0, and the sustained success of Magic Johnson and himself. His message is simple. Opportunity must translate into victory, consistently. The moment critics always point to 2011 Finals 4 for Bird, and many who share his view. The defining example is the 2011 championship series between the Miami Heat and the Dallas Mavericks. Miami entered as overwhelming favorites. The roster featured multiple superstars in their prime. Expectations were massive, but the series flipped the narrative. Dallas won in 6 games. LeBron averaged under 18 points per game. Several fourth quarters saw limited offensive impact. The underdog controlled the biggest stage. To Bird's philosophy, that outcome clashes directly with what defines the greatest ever. His stance. The GOAT doesn't shrink in the moment. That defines legacies. The finals record comparison he keeps returning to. Bird frames the numbers as evidence, not opinion. LeBron. For championships, 6 losses. Bird. 3 championships, 2 losses. Jordan. 6 championships, 0 losses. His interpretation isn't complicated. More appearances don't outweigh more defeats. To him, championships represent finishing the job, not just reaching the opportunity. Why this argument persuades some fans. Bird's position resonates with people who believe greatness is defined by dominance at peak pressure, loyalty to one competitive core, converting chances into titles at the highest rate possible. In that framework, efficiency in winning matters more than longevity or statistical accumulation. Why others strongly disagree. Many modern analysts push back just as strongly, arguing reaching the finals 10 times is itself historic dominance. Competition level, roster quality, and era differences matter. Carrying weaker teams deep into Playoffs shows unmatched impact longevity across decades is part of greatness from this view. Sustained excellence, even with losses, strengthens the GOAT case rather than weakening it. What this debate really comes down to, it's not just about numbers, it's about what you believe defines greatness. Perfect peak dominance, long-term excellence across eras, loyalty to one franchise, ability to adapt and win anywhere. Different eras value different things, which is why the GOAT debate never truly settles. For Larry Bird, greatness isn't only measured in rings. It's measured in how a leader elevates everyone around him. His argument about leadership centers on transformation. Dennis Johnson becoming a Hall of Famer as a defensive anchor and clutch performer, Kevin McHale developing into one of the most dominant low-post scorers ever. A single, stable system with the Boston Celtics built through chemistry, continuity, and internal growth. Bird's philosophy. Leadership means building something that lasts and making teammates greater than they were before you arrived. To him, the GOAT isn't just the best individual. He's the force multiplier who creates a dynasty culture. The counterpoint, LeBron's leadership in a different era. Supporters of LeBron James argue leadership today simply looks different. Instead of building one long dynasty, they say he's proven something rarer, leading multiple franchises to championships, adapting to different rosters, coaches, and systems, delivering historic moments. Like the 2016 comeback with the Cleveland Cavaliers after a 3-1 finals deficit, elevating teammates in different environments, including the Miami Heat and Los Angeles Lakers. Their view. Leadership isn't only about stability. It's about adaptability and impact wherever you go. The real philosophical divide. Bird's model of leadership equals build and sustain one dominant structural. Bronze model of leadership equals transform every environment you enter. So the debate becomes deeper than rings or stats. It's about what leadership should look like. Continuity versus mobility, internal development versus strategic roster building, single dynasty versus multi-franchise dominance. Both require control, influence, and elite performance, just expressed in different eras with different power structures. Why this part of the GOAT debate feels so personal. Championships are numbers. Leadership is identity. Bird is defending a philosophy of team building that defined the 1980s. LeBron represents a player empowerment era where stars shape their own competitive path. That's why neither side fully convinces the other. They're measuring greatness with different definitions of what leadership means. According to Larry Bird, true leadership shows up in how much stronger a team becomes because of you, not just how impressive your personal numbers look. He pointed to Robert Parrish as a perfect example. Parrish was already a talented center, but in Boston's system, with Bird orchestrating the flow, he grew into an even more dominant and consistent force. The entire structure revolved around trust, timing, and shared responsibility. Bird described his leadership style as grounded in sacrifice. He emphasized making the extra pass, setting hard screens, battling for rebounds, and doing the unnoticed work that keeps a team connected. In his view, leadership isn't about spotlight moments. It's about steady decisions that make everyone else more effective over time. He framed it simply. If someone else had the better shot, the ball moved. If a teammate needed space, he created it. If the game demanded grit, he provided it. That, he argued, is what builds a championship culture that lasts beyond one season or one star. His critique of modern power dynamics when the discussion shifted to LeBron James, Bird's tone stayed measured, but his message sharpened. He acknowledged LeBron's production, calling his statistical output and versatility extraordinary. But he questioned how leadership is defined when adversity hits. From Bird's perspective, great leaders absorb pressure rather than redirect it. They stabilize the environment instead of reshaping it when challenges appear. That led to one of his most pointed observations, the long-debated idea of player influence over roster decisions. Bird suggested that actively shaping trades or pushing for short-term roster changes centered around a superstar's timeline changes the traditional meaning of leadership. In his view, guiding management towards specific personnel moves, especially when it involves sacrificing younger talent for immediate results, reflects control, not stewardship. He framed the distinction carefully. Leadership builds continuity, while control restructures it. Bird's argument wasn't emotional. It was structural. He sees leadership as something that strengthens a system from within, patiently, collectively, and over time, rather than something that reorganizes pieces to accelerate outcomes. And that's where his stance lands most firmly. For him, the greatest leaders don't just influence results. They shape enduring foundations that can stand long after their playing days are over. Bird on accountability versus control. For Larry Bird, true leadership isn't about dictating every move or reshaping the roster to suit personal timelines. It's about taking responsibility for what you have and owning the outcomes, good or bad. Bird hammered the point. If you push for influence over trades, coaching, or signings, you claim the power, and when things unravel, pointing fingers isn't an option. You have to face the results head on. That's the fundamental difference between control and leadership in his eyes. He contrasted this directly with LeBron James, whose influence in Miami, Cleveland, and Los Angeles is well documented. Trading promising young talent for veteran win now. Players advocating for specific coaches and signings to optimize short-term success, moving on to the next franchise when situations eventually broke down. Bird's philosophy? That's not leadership. It's control, and it comes with accountability for every outcome. Point one team. One legacy. Bird spent his entire career with the Boston Celtics, placing trust in his front office and committing to a system built to last. He transformed role players into legends, turned a single core into multiple championships, and created a dynasty without hopping from city to city. That, he said, is what legends do. They don't run when adversity hits. They don't blame others when plans fail. They win with what they've got, or go down swinging, leaving a legacy of grit, resilience, and authenticity. Bird's message is clear. Championships matter, yes, but how you achieve them defines the difference between greatness and legendary status. For Larry Bird, leadership and greatness aren't just about X's and O's. They're about mindset, the relentless drive that separates legends from the merely excellent. Bird didn't pull punches when comparing his era to LeBron James's. He argued that the 1980s and early 1990s were a constant war zone, facing Hall of Famers every night. Magic Johnson, Isaiah Thomas, Julius Erving, Moses Malone, and Dominique Wilkins. No nights off, no coasting through a season. Playoff success demanded sustained excellence and preparation. Bird's point, the talent pool was concentrated, rosters were stacked, and every victory was earned against elite competition. There was no soft bracket or shortcut to glory. By contrast, Bird sees LeBron's prime as comparatively easier, especially in the Eastern Conference. While there were stars, the landscape didn't consistently demand the same grueling, every-night dominance. In his words, back then, you couldn't take plays off. You couldn't coast through the season and flip a switch in the playoffs. It's a critique of mentality as much as ability. For Bird, true legends thrive when every game is a battle, not just when the spotlight shines in the finals. Bird on competition and finals reality. For Larry Bird, the GOAT debate isn't just about appearances. It's about who you had to beat to get there. Bird didn't mince words. While LeBron James made 8 straight finals from 2011 to 2018, the Eastern Conference during that stretch, in Bird's view, was historically weak. Teams like the Indiana Pacers, Atlanta Hawks, and early Toronto Raptors squads lacked the dynastic firepower that defined Bird's era. Bird contrasted that with his own path. No shortcuts, no soft matchups. Every playoff run meant facing legends: Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and James Worthy. Every series was a grueling test of skill, endurance, and strategy. His point, getting to the finals is one thing. Winning against top-tier opposition consistently is what separates the good from the legendary. Bird's blunt takeaway: LeBron was walking to the finals for almost a decade. The East during that run was historically weak, and when he finally ran into elite competition in the finals, he lost when it mattered. In other words, to Bird, LeBron's record reflects dominance in a soft conference, not undeniable greatness under pressure. It's a critique of the context behind the stats, not the stats themselves. a perspective that hits at the core of what defines a true GOAT. Bird on physicality and era differences for Larry Bird. The conversation about greatness isn't complete without talking about how physical the game used to be. Bird didn't hold back. The modern game is softer, he said. Hand-checking was legal, defenders could really bump and body up players, and physical defense was part of the strategy, not a foul. The pace was intense, the hits were real, and every possession demanded toughness and endurance. He acknowledged LeBron James is a physical marvel. 6 feet 9 inches, 250 pounds of pure athleticism. But Bird stressed that translating that dominance to the 1980s would be a different story. The rules, the hand checks, the physicality of front courts like Robert Parrish and Kevin McHale, and the bruising pace of playoff battles would have tested any superstar differently. His point: era context matters, and greatness isn't just about skill or stats. It's about thriving under the conditions of the time. Bird argued that the toughness required to survive his era added another layer to what it meant to be truly legendary. Bird on intangibles and the killer instinct. Agree or disagree? Larry Bird keeps it straightforward. Context and competition define greatness. It's not just about stats, rings, or highlights. It's about the environment you faced and the challenges you conquered. Bird argued that LeBron James's road, while impressive, was easier than his own. Fewer elite obstacles in the East, weaker overall competition, and the ability to build or join super teams shaped a path that didn't test the same mental and physical toughness he faced nightly. Then he moved to what really separates the great from the greatest: intangibles you can't quantify. Bird highlighted the mindset, the killer instinct, the relentless drive to dominate every possession. He referenced Michael Jordan as the prime example. 6 rings, yes, but more importantly, a mentality that never let up. The willingness to push opponents to the brink and finish the job without excuses. Bird's verdict: LeBron may be one of the best athletes ever, but in terms of that killer edge, the fearlessness under pressure, he doesn't reach the same level as the legends who defined their eras. It's a mindset argument as much as a performance argument. And that's what makes his critique resonate with purists and older generation fans.